Now, it is my distinguished honor to introduce to you Dean Robertson. As Dean and Reliance Professor of Management and Private Enterprise at Wharton, Thomas Robertson leads Wharton's effort to serve as a force for economic and social good in the world. A member of Wharton's standing faculty until 1994, he previously served as chair of the Marketing Department and Associate Dean for Executive Education. In 2007, he returned to Wharton as dean. Prior to this appointment, Tom was chair of International Strategy at Emory University and founding director of Emory's Institute for Developing Nations. He served as dean of Emory's Gazetta Business School from 1998 to 2004 and deputy dean of the London Business School from 1994 to 1998. Tom, thank you for everything you've done for us, for this school, and for the students. Now please join me in welcoming Dean Robertson.
Wow. Thank you, Shaku, for your kind words and for the wonderful leadership you've provided to the Wharton Graduate Association. It's been a pleasure working with you and the members of your leadership team who are here with you today. This is the third year that I've had the distinct honor of addressing the graduating classes of the Wharton School. And in that time, I've settled into the academic rhythm and the requirements of the deanship, and I even began to think I was getting rather good at delivering appropriate commencement greetings. And last week, as if to prove the point, I ran into a faculty member who volunteered how glad she was that I would once again be performing this task. Really, I said, flattered. Oh, it's much better this way, she assured me. In the old days, we had speakers who would go on and on for an hour and never say a thing. You were able to do that in just 15 minutes. This afternoon, I'll aim to do it in 10. I'll talk fast. All of the students I've had the opportunity to congratulate at graduation have made considerable sacrifices in time and money to receive their degrees. But I think for you, the MBA program and the MBA program for executives, for you coming a little bit later in life, a little bit than, say, undergraduate, you have additional obligations along the way, and that's presented additional challenges for you. And your pursuit of the MBA has benefited from the support of spouses and parents and friends, and they claim our affection. And they've earned our gratitude for the assistance they've provided you for the past 2 years. And so much as Shaku suggested, I think it would be great if you would stand up and thank all these wonderful people out there who've been so important to you in the last 2 years. Please join me in thanking parents, friends, relatives. It's interesting, isn't it, how in Western society, when we get to key moments in life, someone puts on a robe. If you're being married, there might be clergy wearing robes. If we find ourselves before the bars of justice, we'll be facing a judge wearing robes. And on these occasions, when we graduate from a program of study, out come the robes again. Here are your perfectly ordinary professors, or actually they are extraordinary professors, suddenly dressed in robes and massed together on a stage looking uncomfortably like a grand tribunal of the Spanish Inquisition. But then you've probably already made this association. The desired effect here is not meant to be intimidation, but rather signification. Through our dress and the formal nature of this event, we're underlining the fact that you've reached a key moment in life. And it's terribly important to get the key moments right. No doubt some of you are feeling that the only key moment that's truly important to get right at the moment is to walk across this stage and shake hands without tripping in front of family and friends armed with video recording devices. But in fact, as you now journey back into the wide and venturesome world, what you end up facing is mainly a fair amount of routine, punctuated every so often by these key moments. Imagine, for instance, doing the same task repeatedly and unendingly for 3 years. That's about 27,000 hours, which is the amount of flying time that Captain Chesley Sullenberger had accumulated when he took off from LaGuardia Airport with 155 people on his plane. And then came these key moments, to be precise, 6 minutes of key moments in which Captain Sully did everything right. And we're all familiar with the happy outcome. I hope you'll remember that it's the key moments that you've been educated and trained to address. What you really get paid for is your ability to put things right when they go wrong. I'm so pleased that our guest speaker this afternoon is class of 1979 alumnus Robert Kapito, co-founder, president, and director of BlackRock. His experience in last year's financial crisis and his company's ability to emerge from a cyclone of economic bad news, bigger than, stronger than ever, is a casebook study of getting the key moments right. And there are others. Perhaps not many people remember this, but the computer giant Intel did not start out in the integrated circuit business, but in memory chips. Initially, in the 60s and 70s, that was their chief business. In fact, they were a pioneer in the industry, creating their first 64-bit memory. Yes, that's right, a chip that could store 64 digits. And that was impressive at the time. Intel fashioned its culture and its self-image around being the best memory maker in the market. But technology marches on, and by the early 1980s, competitors were producing high-quality, low-cost chips by the hundreds of thousands. Intel's share of the market got smaller and smaller until the company itself was threatened. In that time, Gordon Moore, who was CEO, and Andy Grove was president, and one day at the darkest hour, Grove asked Moore, if we got kicked out and the board brought in new management, what would the new CEO do? Moore shot back almost immediately, get us out of memories. Okay, said Grove, then why shouldn't you and I walk out the door, come back in, and do it ourselves? And why not indeed? The key to effective leadership, which Moore and Grove so clearly possessed, is the ability to assess accurately the nature of a crisis and then do something about it. If the future's integrated circuits, then get out of memory, even if memory is what you do best. As is so often the case, of course, this is much easier said than done. It's incredibly hard to make the major transitions from memory to integrated circuits, from entrenched base to emerging technologies, from manager to business leader. But I believe it's these transitions, these key moments that you as Wharton graduates are best prepared to recognize and most equipped to meet. Navigating the key moments is one of your skills. And skills are one of the 3 foundational legs supporting your Wharton education. The second is judgment. It's ability to know when to shift to something new and when to stay the course. It's a sense of when to go with the flow and when to disengage from the herd before it takes you off a cliff. It's never an easy or sure thing. Fundamentally, it relies on one important attribute: never relinquish the right to change your mind. Seasons change, indeed everything in life changes. And yet it's astounding how many people in business, government, and the professions find it impossible to reorient their beliefs, adjust their ideas, and change their minds. The first and consummate great American of business and industry also happens to have been the founder of the University of Pennsylvania. In later life, Benjamin Franklin reflected that so often people change their minds purely for the sake of expediency, which is precisely the wrong reason to do so. So convenient a thing it is to be a reasonable creature, declared the ever-sardonic Franklin, since it enables one to find or make a reason for everything one has a mind to do. But he saw that in the key moments, facing the big decisions, changing your mind can indeed be the right thing to do. At the critical moment in U.S. history here in Philadelphia, when judgment was required, it was the 70-year-old Franklin who galvanized a wavering Continental Congress, contemplating a break with England by reminding them that we must indeed all hang together, or most assuredly, we shall all hang separately. And his was the judgment that helped create a nation. In addition to skills and judgment, there's a third great advantage that you go forward with today: purpose. Purpose is what has always set the Wharton School and its graduates apart. Our founder, Joseph Wharton, was a staunch Quaker who believed that there was a meaning and a higher cause to business beyond merely making money. A useful business education, he said, ought to produce solutions to the social problems incident to our civilization. By the age of 55, he was already a highly successful businessman who possessed a keen scientific mind and a restless curiosity. With no child to assume his family name and business empire, Wharton decided to dedicate part of his wealth to the creation of a new school, one that was intended to train the next generation of great business leaders. They were to be, quote, pillars of the state, whether in public or private life. It is to this great tradition, and I would say to this great obligation, that I hereby welcome you, our newest graduates. You've gained the skills, you've honed your judgment, and you're full of purpose. Today, the only thing that remains is to set you loose upon the world. And judging by everything I have seen and heard about you from your faculty over these past 2 years, the world had better watch out. Congratulations, graduates. Go forth, do great things. Always be proud of Wharton, for certainly we will always be proud of you. Thank you. Was that 10 minutes, Shakyu? Close enough? Okay, it is my pleasure now to introduce our commencement speaker, to introduce Robert Kapito. Mr. Kapito is co-founder, president, and director of BlackRock, the world's largest, fastest growing, and best performing money manager, with over $3 trillion in assets and offices in 24 countries. Founded in 1988, it's an entirely new kind of firm, a financial general store offering products to both institutional and retail investors, and the largest provider of fixed income funds. Following the acquisition of Barclays Global Investors earlier this year, BlackRock now manages twice as much money in assets as its next largest competitor. And as president, Mr. Cupido is responsible for the day-to-day oversight of all operations. He's also a devoted public citizen. He currently serves as chairman of the Hope and Heroes Children's Cancer Fund and as president of the board of directors of Periwinkle Theater for Youth, a national nonprofit arts and education organization. We're also fortunate to have him as a trustee of the University of Pennsylvania. He earned his BS in economics from Wharton in 1979 and an MBA from another business school in 1983. Last fall, he was honored with the Joseph Wharton Award for Leadership, which is given to the Whartonist alumnus who embodies the highest standards of leadership in both business and society. Rob.
Thank you, Dean Robertson. Fellow Wharton students, I apologize that I may not be quite the commencement speaker that you have anticipated with great fanfare, like Bono, Steve Jobs, or Obama. Not only am I not a household name, but I'm not even much of a public speaker. The last time I spoke publicly was after a fellow named Pat Riley. Now, some of you might know that Pat Riley was a famous basketball coach. And I remember that night he spoke about challenge, when to take a challenge and when not to take a challenge. He said that when he was originally asked to become coach of the Lakers, the new owner told him that if he took the job, he'd be guaranteed that his players would have the best of everything. Stay in the best hotels, take private planes, eat in the best restaurants. The owner would supply whatever Pat needed to assure a winning team. The only caveat was that he said he'd like to talk to his employees a few times a year, and whenever asked, Pat should bring the team immediately to wherever he asked him to. So Pat accepted the job, and as you know, they went on to be the best basketball team in history. But one day, Pat received the call, and the owner asked Pat to bring his players to the Mary Pickford estate in California. The owner went on to say that when his players got there, they should come out by the pool, but I don't want any of your players swimming in my pool. Now, Pat thought that was a strange request, but accepted. He flew out to California. When they got to the estate, it was indeed beautiful. There were unbelievable cars in this long driveway. And they saw a lot of people gathered around the pool out back, so he had his players gather around it too. Just then, Pat realized why the owner didn't want any of his players swimming in the pool. There were 100 snapping alligators in this pool. The owner said to his guests, "You need to understand when to take a challenge and when not to. So I will give any of you the cars in this driveway, this great estate, my daughter's hand in marriage. All you have to do is swim from one end of the pool to the other." Pat said, "I looked left, everyone was laughing. I looked to the right, and as I looked to the right, I heard a splash. One of my players was in this pool, swimming. Alligators were snapping at him, but he came out unscathed." The owner was amazed. He said, "Son, no one has ever taken that challenge before. That was amazing. And I'm good at my word. Tell me what you want. The estate, the cars in the driveway, or my daughter's hand in marriage?" And the player, out of breath, looked the owner square in the eye, and he said, "I don't want the estate, I don't want the cars in the driveway, and I don't want your daughter's hand in marriage. All I want to know is who pushed me in the damn pool." So today, I want to thank Dean Robertson for pushing me in the pool and giving me the challenge to impart upon you the secrets to a successful career after you leave Wharton in 12 minutes. I accept that challenge. You are an outstanding, diverse student body whose leadership, innovation, energy, and spirit will undoubtedly build a better world. I remember my graduation day here in 1979 when my professor told me something profound. He said that beyond the yellow brick road of naivety and the mugger's lane of cynicism, there is a narrow path, poorly lit, hard to find, and even harder to stay on once found. You have the skill and the perseverance to take that path, to serve in countless ways. We need you. That charge rings louder today, Wharton MBA Class of 2010. The business world needs you. It needs your spirit, it needs your entrepreneurship, and it needs your ethics. So if you do not remember one thing that I say today, please remember just this. Integrity is the coin of the realm. Not stocks, not bonds, not commodities, not real estate, and not investment banking. Integrity is the coin of the realm. You are a class that brings to the business world very high expectations. You desire more than a job. That's why you came here from every state across America, from Asia, from Europe, from Latin America, and around the world. You want to achieve something meaningful, develop new products and services, help create jobs, reinvent stagnant businesses, translate technology to manufacturing, push for clean energy, and focus on global needs. And most importantly, eliminate unethical practices. But the business world has become more complex, unpredictable, and quite frankly, dangerous. Terms like risk and success, which seem obvious to define, need to be re-examined due to the unpredictable and unimaginable events on Wall Street over the last few years. You will live in a world of email, Facebook, Twitter, Google, and YouTube. And you will find that while it takes years to build a reputation, it only takes a minute of poor judgment for it all to vanish. And you will be very, very surprised at the lack of understanding of how technology really works. A few years ago, a fellow on one of the futures exchanges wanted to put an order to sell 1,000 futures contracts and instead entered the symbol to sell 1 million futures contracts. The market reacted strongly and began to nosedive until it was figured out as an error and corrected. But what no one else saw was that the broker that entered the trade realized that he had made an error the second he hit the enter button. And he reacted by ripping the computer out of the wall, hoping to catch the trade in the wire before it hit the wall. It doesn't work that way. You will need more than a good business plan to be successful. And as Henry Kissinger said, while success is the result of a well-designed plan, one must have the courage to execute it. So how do you develop this courage, and what are some of the key ingredients in your career plan? First, you must appreciate a balance between your work life and your personal life. You can have it all. You just have to want them both as much. You can work hard, you can play hard, it will make you stronger. But the secret ingredient in your career plan is to trust more than your brain. Trust your heart. The person with the heart inspires the entire team and fuels its collective passion. It's like a chemistry. He or she is the one that makes the formula work, the one element that sets off an explosive reaction. Leading with your heart and finding passion in what you do will make everything around you fall into place, and the rest will become natural. Dean Robertson tells me that the Wharton faculty is very confident about your future because this class is full of leaders and full of heart to lead the Wharton citizen that believes that anything is possible. Second, you will have defining moments in your life. A defining moment is something that happens in your life that you can never forget. It's burned in your memory, and it gives you the energy, the perseverance, and the courage to execute that plan. Now, my defining moment came when I was 13. My father, a blue-collar worker in upstate New York, suffered a debilitating stroke. The only road to recovery was extensive and expensive physical therapy. Unfortunately, we were not of the means to achieve that. Our only option was to avail ourselves to care in a veterans hospital in Albany, available since he was a World War II veteran. So late that night, after a transfer to this hospital 100 miles away, my family and I were forced to leave my father, who was not able to speak or walk, in a dark ward with 30 men who had been there for quite some time with various illnesses. Upon leaving that ward, I turned back and saw a once dynamic and strong man limp in bed with no expression in dark quarters. That picture is burned in my memory, and that, colleagues, was my defining moment. I vowed that I would have to do better that it was my responsibility to get my family out of that. So 9 years later, when I graduated here in '79, my father sat right back there in a wheelchair with my mother and experienced this moment. Now, while I knew he was proud, he never got to know the next 30 years that brought me to the presidency of the largest asset management company in the world. And I think how great it would have been for him to see my wonderful family, the fortunate success in managing $3.4 trillion on behalf of individuals and institutions across the world. But my story is not unique at all. It simply emphasizes that while you may have the courage, not everything always happens according to plan. In real life, there are no dress rehearsals. So today is a defining moment. Maybe not for you, but certainly for your parents, your friends, the faculty, to be part of this most important achievement, the work, the advice, the tuition, and the mentorship they provided. Now, when Dean Robertson asked you to stand up and gave them a round of applause, that was really weak. So can you stand up and give them a real round of applause that's loud, please? The global financial system is coming out of the most difficult time since the Great Depression, a crisis that will profoundly reshape banking and capital markets worldwide. The story is still unfolding. I am proud to say that my company, BlackRock, has distinguished itself throughout the crisis and is one of the few firms to emerge stronger and more robust. Though we were not perfect, we never lost our focus on serving clients and helping them navigate treacherous conditions. We continue to reinvest in our business and reinvest in ourselves, constantly thriving to improve our ability to help create a better financial world for our clients. We are a fiduciary. We never forgot that we're managing managing money for real people. The auto employee who puts a windshield wiper on the car every day for 30 years and dreams about retiring in a condo in Florida. The policeman who recently helped to evacuate Times Square from a bomb threat. The fireman from 9/11. And the teachers who will depend upon pensions across the world. Earning the trust of our investors is what motivates our team at BlackRock to do more and to try harder every day. But the real cost of the financial crisis is the loss of millions of jobs, the lack of clear rules, so that so-called smart individuals will not exploit the limits for their own benefit. So it's your turn to help us redefine a more robust business world that we can all be proud of. As you embark upon this next chapter and you head down that poorly lit, hard to find, narrow path, ask yourselves the following questions along the way. What part do you want to play in the future business community? How do you want to live your life? Will you be proud of yourselves when you look in the mirror? Will it really be by the money you amassed, the accomplishments you have achieved, or the integrity you have displayed in attaining your goals? If you were standing here, would this be as proud a moment for you, and will you be as honored and as humbled as I am to stand before all of you today? So, class of 2010, carry on the great Wharton tradition proudly and protect it. Integrity is the coin of the realm. Congratulations.